So many people may know that R. Kelly recently got a new appeals lawyer. And I myself found myself asking, does this appeals lawyer matter? And to answer this question, or to get into the mindset of answering this question, I actually read this article and I actually want to share this article with you. And then I'll come back and I'll give you what I think about his new appeals lawyer, right? So let's get into the article. Convicted singer Kelly to get appeal aid from high profile New York attorney who helped Bill Cosby. Disgraced R&B singer R. Kelly's legal team got a shot in the arm Friday as a high profile attorney who won an appeal of Bill Cosby abuse case has signed on to challenge Kelly's racketeering conviction in New York. Jennifer Beaujean, a New York-based attorney whose legal career began in Chicago, filed her appearance in Kelly's case in the U.S. District Court in Brooklyn, where Kelly was convicted last month of racketeering and abuse charges. Beaujean told the Tribune she will spearhead Kelly's post-conviction motions and, should U.S. District Judge Ann Donnelly deny Kelly a new trial, work on the appeal before the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The post-trial motions are due Monday, but Beaujean has asked for a 2-month extension. Beaujean was the driving force behind Cosby's appeal of his crimes conviction in Pennsylvania and wound up winning the actor's stunning release from prison. She said she's looking forward to getting familiar with the record in Kelly's case, which was anchored by Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act charge that she called a kitchen sink approach. I am becoming increasingly concerned with how the government is abusing the RICO statute in order to plead around the statute of limitations and essentially put people's entire lives on trial. It's becoming a formula for government. You have a right to defend yourself against specific allegations. Beaujean said she saw similar government overreach in another high-profile case she's handling with Knicks VM cult leader Keith Raniere, who was convicted under the RICO statute in the same courthouse as Kelly. Kelly, 54, was convicted on September 27 of racketeering conspiracy, charges alleging he used his music career to further a criminal enterprise. The jury found him guilty of all 12 individual illegal acts, including relations with multiple underage girls, as well as a 1994 scheme to bribe an Illinois public official to get a phony ID for 15-year-old singer Aaliyah so the two could get married. Kelly, who is currently being held at the federal lockup in Brooklyn, faces 10 years to life in prison when he's sentenced in May. The other members of his legal team, Deborah Orcanic, Thomas Farinella, and Nicole Blank Becker, will continue to work on the sentencing issues, Beaujean said. The singer is also charged in the U.S. District Court in Chicago with running years-long schemes to buy back tapes he allegedly made with underage girls and to bribe or coerce witnesses in his 2008 trial in Cook County, which ended in an acquittal. U.S. District Judge Harry Leinenweber has set a trial for August in that case. At a hearing early this month, Kelly's Chicago-based attorney, Steve Greenberg, said Kelly was in the process of revamping his legal team in the New York case, which underwent a dramatic shakeup in the weeks leading up to the trial. Greenberg and Beaujean have worked together closely on several cases in Chicago and elsewhere. Greenberg and his co-counsel, Michael Lennard, are also representing Kelly on indictments filed in the Cook County in February 2019, alleging the abuse of 4 victims, 3 of which whom were underage at the time. So that's what that article reads, and this is an article from the the Chicago Tribune. I apologize. Chicago Tribune. And to answer the question, does his appeals lawyer matter? First, I think this article gives us a little bit of insight as to what's been going on with the R. Kelly case since the conviction. Many of you may know that he's been convicted, and I haven't really been doing a lot of videos on my channel in the recent weeks, so I didn't cover much of the post trials motions after the convictions. Maybe that's something I'll get into a little bit later, maybe not. If you have desire to see that type of content, definitely leave your comments below. But this article gives us a little insight. It looks like the new appeals lawyer, Beaujean, right? Jennifer Beaujean, she's going to focus on the appeal. But this article also tells us that there's going to be several post-conviction motions. And this article tells us one of those motions is a motion for a new trial. Now, I've actually watched other YouTube channels where they talk about the chances of getting a successful trial when filing that motion. And essentially, most other YouTubers are a little pessimistic, and they think that R. Kelly's not going to get a new trial, and Ann Donnelly is going to deny that. But you have to understand that, first off, I actually talk about the post-conviction procedures, and I also talk about how the post-conviction procedures is going to impact R. Kelly in several videos. I'll try to plug those videos into this one. And and just to recap, right, I'm not going to go do a deep dive on the post-conviction procedures, and even as it pertains to R. Kelly, I'm not going to say a lot about that, but it's worth mentioning some of that information here so people can follow along. Basically, many people think that the trial is over once you are convicted, but that's not true. There's a lot of things that can happen and should happen after a conviction. And one of the things that's going to happen is the sentencing report. And the sentencing report is what's going to be used to determine how much time you're going to get, right? So again, if you want more information on that, just see the videos. Maybe there'll be a link above. If not, there'll be a link at the end of the screen. So R. Kelly has to decide whether or not he wants to participate in the post-conviction proceeding, because I think there are some implications for participating and not participating. One of the implications of participating is that if you have any chance whatsoever of getting a reduced sentence or no sentence at all, it's going to be determined in that pre-sentencing report or the post-conviction report. Pre-sentencing report, post-conviction report, really the same thing. And of course, another implication and not participating is that you won't receive lesser, time off or lesser sentencing. And then one mindset is that it doesn't matter if he participates or not, they're still going to throw the book at him because of the Me Too movement. They want to basically make examples out of people. So one of the negative implications of the pre-sentencing report is that he could participate, and that information that he provides in that pre-sentencing or the post-conviction proceeding is going to be used against him to essentially give him the max time. Now, R. Kelly needs to make a decision whether or not he's going to participate. And of course, another thing that happens in the post-conviction proceedings is that you get a chance to ask for a new trial. And we can see that there's evidence that they're asking for that here. Now, here's the tricky part. Many people, as I've said earlier, they have essentially said that's going to be denied. But you have to understand the reason for actually going and filing a post-conviction motion for a new trial is because you're actually trying to get information into the record so that when you go to the appeals court, you can appeal it. Because the thing about an appeal is that the appeals court is only going to be able to hear facts and evidence that was actually presented in the trial or in the lower court. So if there was anything missed in the actual trial, you now get a chance to add those things in the actual motion for the new trial. And then Now you can argue those things that you would have potentially missed in appeals court. Because remember, if you don't argue the issues in the lower courts or the circuit courts or the lower district courts, then you can't argue them on appeal. They call that waiving your right to those arguments. So let me see if I can think of a quick example. What if you're up for murder and you have a self-defense claim, but for whatever reason, because your lawyer was rushed or because your lawyer was inept or he was inexperienced, you neglect to actually assert the self-defense claim, and you end up really just kind of making other, and I don't know why you would forget to assert the self-defense claim, but I'm just saying, I'm just using this as an example, even though it's a bizarre example, just to get you to help you understand why you could go to appeals court and not be able to argue self-defense because you didn't argue it in the lower court. So that's one example. Like if you had a bona fide self-defense claim, but your lawyer got confused or he fumbled in court and he didn't argue self-defense, and let's say he also forgot to actually put it into his filings, his response to the indictment, then by basically putting that information in your motion for a new trial, you will be able to argue that on appeal, right? So I'm just throwing it out there. I think that one of the purposes for the motion for the new trial is not necessarily to get a new trial, but it may be that's what they're trying to do, but it could also be for the purposes of getting material into the docket so that you can go to the appellate court and you can argue those issues, right? So that's one possibility there, right? So now, just to let you know what I think about this whole situation with its appeals lawyers, another thing you probably should notice is that RKelly also has a trial coming up pretty soon in Chicago. So, for example, he has his sentencing in May for the New York trial, and then right away, I think sometime in August, not right away, a couple of months in between that time, he's going to be taken to Chicago for his trial in Chicago. And this is where it gets tricky because I think Jennifer Beaujean is going to have her blinders on and she's going to focus only what's in front of her. She's not focusing on the post-conviction motions. She's not focusing on the Chicago federal case. She's only focusing on his appeal in New York. And you guys are not going to like what I have to say here, right? And because she's only focusing on the appeals, because she's an appellate lawyer, I'm going to say, in the grand scheme of things, I think that she has a very strong chance of getting RKelly off, right? She has a very strong chance of possibly even getting a new trial for RKelly, because even though they may deny his motion for new trial, that motion for new trial can still be granted in appeals court. So I think that Jennifer Beaujean will have a strong chance of getting RKelly acquitted, or she has a strong chance of getting RKelly a new trial in New York, right? And you can kind of tell what her argument is probably going to be, right? And if I just quote the article, quote, "I am becoming increasingly concerned with how the government is abusing the RICO statute in order to plead around the statute of limitations and essentially putting people's entire life on trial," quote, Beaujean said. And then, quote, "is becoming a formula for the government. You have a right to defend yourself against specific allegations," unquote. So it's pretty clear of what her approach is probably going to be, right? If this article is any indication, then it's going to be clear of what her approach is going to be. And she's basically going to argue that they put his entire life on trial and there were no specific allegations towards RKelly. And those of you that have been following the case, you can see that that is essentially spot on. He wasn't charged with assault. He wasn't charged with battery. He wasn't charged with what was some of the other claims. He wasn't charged with drugging anyone. He wasn't charged with kidnapping anyone, and he wasn't charged of assault. Right. So the reason he wasn't charged of those specific claims, because I believe, in my personal opinion, is that if he was charged, he would have beat all of those charges. So what they did was they gave him the RICO charge, which is really bizarre, and then they compare him to Keith Raniere, and maybe there's a possibility that I will do a video on that, because when you look at Keith Raniere and you look at RKelly, you see that the cases in between these two individuals are totally different, right? And I'll get into it a little bit later on why. If you want to see that material, definitely leave a question and comment below. But despite this, like I said, she will definitely have a strong chance of getting RKelly acquitted, or she'll have a strong chance of giving him a new trial, right? That's the good news. But the bad news is that I don't think that she will really matter. I don't think that having a fantastic appeals lawyer in this case is going to matter that much. And the reason I say that is because you have to look at the grand strategy that they're using against RKelly. RKelly is going to do probably 10 to 15 years time no matter what. And I say this based on how they handled this case and how they have actually stacked the deck against RKelly. So what you have to understand is that it's going to take time to appeal. An appeals court takes time. And when you look at some of the things she's saying in this article, she said she's looking forward to getting familiar with the record, and then she talks about the motions, but she asks that the post-conviction motions be delayed by 2 months. So there's a lot of what a lot of people probably don't know. There's a lot of delay, and there's a lot of red tape when it comes down to filing appeals. And because of this, an appeal, post-conviction proceedings, this can easily eat up 2 to 3 years easy, right? Even when you look at Bill Cosby's case, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, down in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it took Bill Cosby almost 3 years and some change to basically appeal his conviction. And then you look at that, and then you put RKelly into consideration. It could take RKelly up to 3 to 4 years to appeal this conviction. And then after he's appealed it, he could end up with a situation where he wins, but that win might be a new trial. So now you have to basically go back to the lower district court and have a new trial all over again. So if that happens, that's another 3 or 4 years. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you take that and you set it to the side. You say he has 3 years at tops, which he's going to have to spend trying to appeal this case. So you take that and you put that to the side. Then you go over to the Chicago case. Well, you can already tell that because how he was railroaded in New York, you can tell that they're going to do the exact same thing in Chicago. So it really, a lot of times in these court cases, it really doesn't matter if you're guilty. It doesn't matter if you're innocent. The only thing that matters is the public opinion of you, right? And everyone knows that they've done an incredible job at destroying RKelly in the court of public opinion. And unfortunately, RKelly didn't really do a good job defending himself in the court of public opinion. And again, everyone talks about Daryl Johnson or whatever his name is. I'm not, you know what? I'm not going to say he did a fantastic job, but I see him, his publicist or his crisis manager or whatever you want to call him. I kind of see it this way. You're in a situation where you're up the creek without a paddle, and all you have is this 2x4, which is in your boat or in your raft, and you're going to use that to try to paddle your way to safety. again, you're up the creek, right? They call it, shit creek. You're up shit creek without a paddle. So even if you have a paddle, it probably wouldn't make that much of a difference because you're in shit creek. So I see it as Daryl Johnson was the a 2x4 instead of a paddle. He he wasn't a paddle, and he really didn't do a fantastic job, but something was better than nothing. And I think that's the whole problem with this R. Kelly case, is that one of the things he didn't do was defend himself in the court of public opinion. A lot of social media people came out, like myself, to basically try to defend this man in the eye of the public, but I think our efforts were a little bit underwhelmed when you have, TV series being produced to basically tarnish this man's name. So that's one thing people have to keep in mind. So they're going to railroad R. Kelly when he comes to Chicago. They're going to railroad him big time. So you see another situation where he has a strong chance of losing this case, because one of the things they're going to do is that they're going to take the New York case and they're going to come to Chicago and they're going to say, well, we really don't need to argue this because he's already been convicted of similar crimes. That's how they're going to present it to the jury, right? And they are going to railroad R. Kelly. So if they do railroad him and he ends up losing, then this will be yet another case that he has to appeal. So now we have to tack on another 3 years. So now you're looking at a total of 6 years minimum, right? It could be worse if they send it back to the U.S. District Court. Worse or better if they send it back to the U.S. District Court and then they have to have a new trial again. So you also have to understand that they have another case probably against him in Minnesota, which they're going to try to prosecute him. And I don't think they're going to drop that case. I think they're going to pile it on with all the other stuff. And we haven't really even gotten to the possible legal claims, civil claims that are probably going to come towards R. Kelly and basically try to hinder him from actually finding justice. So you have to see, even though the civil and the criminal are totally separate and totally two different trials, you have to understand that they're going to basically use this twofold approach to try to break R. Kelly, because if you don't have money and you can't pay for lawyers, then you're not going to be able to defend yourself and clear your name. And they know that. So that's why they're going to hit him with the civil cases to eat up as much money as possible. And you have to know that the civil cases are going to be important. One thing that could happen is that once he gets sentenced in May, if that date isn't pushed back, once he gets sentenced, then they're also going to probably tack on retribution, right? Retribution to the victims. And when they do that, they're going to put a financial judgment on R. Kelly. And once he has that financial judgment, there's going to be a situation where if he has any money in his on his books in his commissary, right, or any money that he can use in jail to buy commissary, they're going to seize that money. They're going to seize that money and they're going to say, look, we're going to take this money from you and we're going to use this money to pay basically for damages to your alleged victims. And that's what most of this is all about. It's all about money, right? All those women were happy to be with R. Kelly. They were happy to basically deal with him up until the point the money dried out. And now that the money's gone, they're coming back and they're screaming, foul, right? So that's what you have to see, people, is that they have a systematic approach to destroy this man. First, they drag his name through social media. Then they hit him with bogus RICO charges. Then once he's convicted on these charges and he has a chance to appeal, now they're going to go the extra step and they're going to take his money. Mark my words. Let's see what that retribution, not retribution, but let's see what the post-conviction process brings. Everyone knows that they basically seized a lot of his money when they actually filed this case. And even before they filed this case, he had other civil suits in Chicago. But the New York indictment itself comes with the right, or they filed for the right to basically seize all his assets. So now the next step is to actually put a financial judgment against him so they can get do a search and take anything that he has left, right? So that's one of the reasons I say putting money into his account on jail is probably going to be okay for now, but after that financial judgment comes out, it's not going to be such a good idea because they're going to seize that, right? And someone else mentioned maybe putting money on someone else's books. I don't think that works out too well because you'll end up in a situation where that person can just keep your money. I think the best approach is for R. Kelly to choose a lawyer or choose a third party that he's comfortable with. And then that third party sets up a trust fund solely dedicated to his legal defense and basically administrates that trust fund. And then there, people can send money into that trust. But that's it for this video. I wanted to basically come to you guys and tell you what I thought in terms of R. Kelly's new appeals lawyer. I don't really think she matters that much because she's only focusing on the New York case, and she's not even focusing on all aspects of the New York case. I think they're going to they're going to stack a lot of shit against this man, and it's going to be a mile high, and it's going to take decades for him to dig himself out of it, right? So that's it for this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely leave your comments below. Do you think R. Kelly's appeals lawyer matter, or do you think that they're just going to continuously find ways to bury him? I think they're just going to keep trying to bury him. There's multiple ways to win in the legal world. One way is to have a righteous cause and you go to court and you get awarded. That's not what they're doing here. The second way is to bury the person in litigation, and that's where you keep filing bogus claims. You take the person's money and you do everything in your power to oppress them so that they can't afford a lawyer, and they're worn down, and they're not able to continuously go to court and defend themselves. That's what's happening here. That's what I think. You guys let me know what you think. Questions, comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe.